Video games are shaping a generation of instant gratification, the shift that can carry over with them as they become adults. When I first came across this Forbes article a while back, I was immediately skeptical of it because it just reeked of boomer bullshit. I remember being a millennial kid myself, listening to adults yelling at the top of their fucking lungs about how gaming is corrupting society and how it's transforming all of us into like homicidal maniacs. And we turned out just fine. Thank you very much. So yeah, my first instinct was to just dismiss this whole thing as inflammatory mumbo jumbo. But then I came across this. And this. And this. And this. And more, I started asking myself whether we might actually have a problem here, whether there's something going on. So let's not be hypocrites about this whole thing, okay? Since like the dawn of civilization, kids and adolescents have had a thing for gaming, and just as importantly, adults have had a thing for complaining about kids who have a thing for gaming. It's just how the world works. But while human nature hasn't really changed in the last few decades, there's absolutely no denying that what we call modern games and games from like the 90s or 2000s are entirely different beasts. As explained by this Reddit user, I try not to be too doom and gloom about the future generation, but one thing that really worries me is how much video games have changed since the 90s. I recently went back to Ocarina of Time and was struck by how short it was. Games today are so much more engrossing than they were when I was a kid. I also recently decided to give Fortnite a try, and while the game is fun for sure, it's also a labyrinth of consumerism, FOMO, currencies, and corporatism. The four genders. Games used to have an end. They used to be self-contained. You know, you would go in, go on an adventure, and then you would be done with the thing. Now, we have like this constant stream of updates, DLCs, FOMO offers, just wrestling for the last iota of our attention. So then, is this decline in attention spans that everyone is talking about a surprise to anyone?
No, ma'am.
Very importantly, I'm absolutely not blaming the iPad kids themselves for brain rot and stuff like that. I'm blaming capitalism. Just kidding, just kidding. I'm not blaming Gen Alpha because adults are just as vulnerable to these sort of modern game practices as kids are. Hell, a few days ago, I came across this post about a 70-year-old lady reaching like level 10,000 in Candy Crush or something like that. Bro, fucking 10,000, like what the fuck? We should talk about a generation of iPad adults just as much, if not more, we talk about this generation of iPad babies. Nowadays, games often provide players with instant rewards and shortcuts, making it easier to progress without putting in as much effort. I see this through my son, who is eager to try the old games, but is quick to give up on them because of the lack of constant save points and the significant reduction in rewards. Hearing him say, "I wasted my day today in the game and did nothing," and yet, he did not waste his time, but discovered 17 different things that did not work. That is success through failure. Dystopia never felt so good. Oh wow, predatory practices in video games sure are a problem, huh? It sure is a good thing that these kids had alternative sources of entertainment such as real-life friends, and that no major world-changing event suddenly and completely shattered all social interactions at a time crucial for their brain development. Phew! So yes, while the bulk of the pandemic may now be long gone, there's no denying that its long-term effects are still very much with us. Call me lucky if you want, but as a professor, I was able to actually witness a generation of students who, in their first year, mostly attending classes online, right? They studied online, they handed in their assignments online, etc., before returning to an in-person environment, right? In-person teaching, in-person social interactions in their second years. So I could witness how this generation transformed from one year to the other. It's crazy how fucking fast our ability to be human deteriorates. Students have always been socially awkward, don't get me wrong, but these guys, these transition students, took it to a whole nother level. They literally had to relearn, well, how to be human, how to talk with others, how to have meaningful connections. So then ask yourself this: if you, like everyone else, are in need of some distraction and entertainment, at a time where any real life interactions are basically impossible, but virtual entertainment has never been more easily accessible, more hyper optimized, and more abundant than ever before, what's the most likely outcome? Is addiction to social media and gaming a surprise when there literally were no other alternatives for these people? Just have a look at this report from the British Institute of Fiscal Study. Lack of contact with friends and extended family left some children without anyone to turn to. Nearly half of parents reported that their child had more social-emotional difficulties in 2021 than 2020, and this does not seem to be getting any better. You know what? Gen Alpha isn't doomed. We all are. Here's what a Granville Stanley Hill report on the psychology of adolescence concluded. Never have young people been exposed to such dangers of both perversion and arrest as in our present day. Increasing urban life with its temptation, prematurities, sedentary occupations, and passive stimuli, just when an active life is most needed, all these lack some of the principles they still had in older lands with more conservative conditions. Pretty worrisome, right? That sounds really bad. What will the kids ever do? Oh, there's just like one teeny aspect I forgot to mention. This report came out in 1904. Ouch. So yeah, at the end of the day, especially kind of in this era of algorithmic madness where the most inflammatory topics and the most inflammatory content is being pushed to us on a regular basis, it's really important to do a little self-reflection because we're not psychics. Who knows how the kids are going to turn out? And sure, as we've seen, there are reasons to be concerned, and plenty of them. But honestly speaking, I would be the biggest hypocrite in the world if I didn't tell you that some of my younger students are some of the most hardworking, most socially conscious, and empathetic people I had the pleasure of working with. And at the end of the day, you know, just yelling about this generation ruined by iPads and technology achieves precisely nothing. Instead, let's try to be kind of constructed and solution-oriented. What do you guys think is kind of the number one thing that parents should keep in mind when raising Gen Alpha kids? Hot damn! We went an entire Gen Alpha video without mentioning Skibidi Toilet.